I don't know about you, but I hear on the internet all the time when I see an adaptation that the adaptation made the protagonist too likable. And because they made them likable, the message of the story was lost.
I realized that I completely forgot to do a spoiler alert for this video. So this is your spoiler alert that there will be spoilers for both the book and the 2025 adaptation in this video. Also, the sound quality is rough. I tried to fix it in post. It wasn't doing great. I don't know what's going on with my mic, guys. If you have any suggestions, please let me know. Also, I'm just a little out of practice doing all of this because it's been a minute. So there are times where you'll see me look down at my notes. I tried to edit it out, but I didn't put like enough space between my points to effectively edit them out. So I just want to let you know that's why things are a little bit of a mess in this video. Please give me a chance. I have some really good points to make here.
And while that can certainly be true in some cases, there are examples of adaptations like The Running Man 2025, where the protagonist being more likable actually makes the theme of the story stand out more. If you're not familiar with Stephen King's The Running Man, this tells the story of Ben Richards, who is unemployed and decides to try out for a reality TV show called The Running Man, where every day he manages to stay alive. In the book, it's every hour he manages to stay alive. In the movie, it's every day he manages to stay alive. He earns money for his family with the expectation that he is going to be killed before the end of the time limit. Now, you may think, why would he do this? Well, his daughter, Kathy, is sick, and he is unable to get medicine for her any other way because he has been put on an employment blacklist because he spoke to a union representative. And the whole book is a really great critical critique about poverty, media manipulation, and class exploitation. And I think the 2025 adaptation does a really good job maintaining this critique and in some ways actually strengthening it. And the reason the themes hit harder in the movie for me was because they transformed Richard's character from an isolated anti-hero into a sympathetic protagonist. The film takes King's critique and amplifies it by making us emotionally invested. By making us care about Richards, it forces us to face the brutal consequences of systemic oppression. And I'm going to prove it to you. First, we're going to talk about how the film establishes this oppressive system. Then we're going to talk about how the film makes us emotionally invest in someone who is trapped within this system. And then finally, we're going to talk about how the film transformed individual desperation into collective action. Both the book and the movie establish a really brutal visual world. In the book, it's through setting descriptions, and the movie, we get visual settings. In the book, poverty is all around from the very beginning. We get descriptions of the slum-like co-op building that Richards and his family live in. We also get descriptions about pollution choking the city. We're faced with a protagonist who has a sick toddler and can't afford to get medicine for her. And the fact that his wife essentially has to sell herself in the novel in order to get in for her shows just how desperate the circumstances are for people in the co-op. And the movie does a great job visually establishing this. We see this very gritty, run-down apartment that Richards lives in, and we move literally in the opening sequence through the slums of the city to a literal gate that bars the poor from the rest of the city that he has to cross into in order to be in the nice part of the city. It's a very stark contrast. One of the changes they made to Richards to make him a bit more sympathetic of a character actually is a change that they made to his wife, Sheila. In the book, she does actually sell herself in order to make money when they need to. In the movie, she is like a club hostess, and she and Richards do have a conflict that prompts him to go try out for the games, where she's saying, I know I can get more tips from these guys if I just play it up a little bit more, and he doesn't want her to do that. But she says, I'm going to do whatever I can because, like, our daughter needs medicine. But they didn't actually make her prostitute. However, what makes the world even more insidious in the movie is the fact that the Gaming Commission lies about his wife.
Because the thousands he wins goes to his wife, Sheila. A night witch who only takes the biggest tips at the Liberty. If you comprendo my innuendo.
And tells the audience who is watching the show that she does sell herself for money, and that she does it because Richards abandoned her and the child to come on this game and win all this money, which is not the case, but shows that media manipulation of his character and what often tends to happen with depictions of poor people. They are seen as they must be morally bankrupt because otherwise they would be succeeding in this society, which most of us know by now is not the case. In both the book and the movie, his daughter is potentially dying from a very curable illness. She's had a fever for a week and they haven't been able to get her medicine. And that just further shows how healthcare is often a privilege of the wealthy, and that these people are being denied healthcare because they can't afford to pay for it. I don't really want to think about how similar this sounds. In a lot of ways, the book by Stephen King, which the book, fun fact, takes place in 2025, but was written in the early 80s, I believe. It feels a little prophetic, although we haven't quite advanced as much technologically as that book has. So not only does the Gaming Commission do their best to dehumanize the poor, they also like to play a little bit of eugenics. Fun times, because we all know eugenics is entertaining. We know from the very beginning of the book and the movie that people who try out for these reality show games that are played on Freevee are in desperate circumstances. The lines leading into the game's auditions resemble Great Depression bread lines. And while The Running Man might be the most brutal of all of these Freevee games, it's not the only one that treats people as disposable. The TV show Treadmills to Bucks shows this disregard of the ill and the obese, because they are literally being forced to answer trivia questions on a treadmill. And if they get an answer wrong, then the treadmill speeds up until they can no longer run and are faced with injury or death. What it shows is a society that literally finds the harm of ill or obese people entertaining, because they are seen as less than human. They are seen as not deserving. And that is a eugenicist belief. Also, because it's a trivia show, it kind of shows this pervasive anti-intellectualism that shows how poverty is equated to stupidity, and that is not the case. All it does is to show that the poor are often viewed by people in society to be disposable. And as in all things in life, people react to this system in different ways. See that very starkly in the three contestants of The Running Man. First, you have the naive contestant. With the first contestant, he honestly didn't believe that he would be turned in. He's kind of naive and kind of shows that he believes in inherent goodness of people. But his death shows how the system destroys idealism. Contestant number 2 is another man. In the movie, it is a queer person. And I think this change was made very, very deliberately to kind of echo societal views that are unfortunately kind of very prominent right now, that, an LGBTQ person is a sexual deviant or is mentally ill in some way. I think both the book and the movie do this great job in showing the different psychological breakdown of people underneath the system, people that the system would view as less than. And while both are a commentary about class structures, the take of class structures is a little different between the book and the movie. The book definitely focuses a little bit more on horizontal classism, this idea of pitting the middle class versus the poor, which most of us know by now is a tool that the elites use to pit ourselves against each other, because then we're not looking up. And the film does show this, but it does it through the character Amelia. She has this great speech that she tells Richards after he hijacks her car. I'll insert it here.
How do you live with yourself? Hmm? You dare sit there and criticize my driving? Tell me how to operate my own car? I am a member of society! You disgust me.
And it really does effectively show the disdain that the middle class has for these people, because the media have been telling horrible things about Richards to the middle class. And while the film does show this horizontal class conflict, it really, really focuses on the vertical class conflict, which the book does as well. I just feel like there was less explicit commentary about vertical class conflict in the book than there was in the film. When we cover vertical conflict in the book, it feels a lot more hopeless than the movie does. So in the book, Richards is not the most likable character by any means. He can be honestly quite racist. He uses the N-word multiple times. And while the book does tend to use this a bit more to show Richard's dedication to free speech, because it puts it directly in contrast to an anti-hate speech law that was put into place in this world, I still think there's maybe a better way you could show that. But again, I have to excuse the book as a product of its time. But even in the 80s, we knew the N-word was bad news. Ben Richards can also be quite sexist. He slaps a gaming commission woman's ass and has, fantasies about the different women that he encounters. And while I'm not going to accuse someone of fantasies, what's in your head does not always reflect in your actions. So I can forgive that a little bit. People are attracted to people, even if they're married. I can forgive that. But he is blatantly sexist to one of the gaming commission people. And again, I feel like it's more him reacting against the system than what he actually believes, but it was still just it just gets your hackles up a little bit. And this is where, I think Stephen King does a great job establishing Richards in the book as an anti-hero. But given modern context, I can't help but feel like the book makes him a little bit of a red pill character. And yes, it shows that he defies the poverty stereotypes, but it does make him actively difficult to like. The film has the benefit of getting to establish Richard's reactions as reactions to the system he is opposing. The film gives Richards a more sympathetic background for his beliefs. Yes, he is a very angry character. It's mentioned in the film explicitly that he's one of the angriest people the Gaming Commission has ever met. What the movie does brilliantly is show that his anger is a reaction to the injustice that he experiences. And it changes his reactions from a character flaw into justified rage. We see in the very opening scene how he is punished for just doing the right thing.
I need to work. She's had a fever for the last week. No. That ain't on me. I'm not the jerk that spoke to a union rep about radiation exposure one time.
He talks to his union rep about the radiation that is affecting the workers in the plants. And because of that, he is blacklisted from having a job. Yet he was actively doing the thing that the viewer would see as the moral response to that situation. The scene that I'm about to show you is another great example of how Richards is just trying to do the right thing and the system punishes him for it.
Hey, this guy's in trouble. Get up and get back in line. This guy needs help. No helping. Step back.
We also see in the movie how Richards does have a connection to his community outside of just his family, whereas the book really focuses more on his family connection. And we see that with his relationship with the pawnbroker, whose name I'm forgetting at the moment. But in the book, that scene is very transactional. The pawnbroker just gives him his first fake ID and his first disguise. The film establishes that this is a personal connection, that they have an established relationship that, while we don't necessarily see the build of that on screen, obviously means something to both characters. And we find out that the pawnbroker in the movie was going to offer Richards a job that thus would have gotten him out of having to apply for the games, except not really, because it wasn't fast enough to save his daughter.
I had to do it. No, you didn't. I was gonna bring you on here, sort of as a partner. I should have told Sheila yesterday, but I wanted to tell you myself.
And when people are faced with desperate circumstances, they're going to do desperate things. And I think that that example was a brilliant addition to show how, yes, change can happen within the system, but oftentimes it's way too slow to be effective. Another change they made to Richards that made him more likable was that they gave him hesitations on killing people. In the book, he doesn't really seem to regret any of the people who die as an effect, but he is explicitly told to kill a hunter when he has the opportunity, and he decides not to. And while there's a little bit of an FU to the person who told him to do it, there's also this underlying sense that he wasn't going to do that because the right thing is to not murder people.
Now finish off that hunter. Wait for my cue to exit.
You want me to off one of your own guys?
It's all good, Freebie. Okay, on you. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And action.
So in both the book and the movie, we do see how media manipulation affects our views of Richards, not necessarily our as in the reader, but like the people watching The Running Man. We know that they are manipulating what he is doing to make him look worse. And there's no better example of that than in the film when that building explodes. He is blamed for that explosion.
The NCG bomb squad is on scene combing through the rubble for evidence. Preliminary reports indicate Richards set off the explosion in the basement.
And while that is true, the movie makes it very explicit that this was an accidental explosion, that, it caught fire, and then because people were going after him, that's what caused the explosion. He even warned the people coming after him to not come in because there was going to be an explosion.
Get out of here! That place is about to blow!
Which again establishes him as a character who wants to do the right thing. And because you feel that sense of him wanting to do good and be good, you can be on his side more. When it comes to Richard's character arc in this story, it really is, I keep thinking of those memes that go around online of what radicalized you. That's what this story is. It's a story about what radicalizes a person. However, in the book, that radicalization, for me, happened a little bit too suddenly. Yes, Stephen King established the roots very early on, based on his beliefs and all of that. He does that. And then once he finds out his family is murdered, it's like flipping a switch. However, the film establishes this radicalization in very clear stages that escalate. It, of course, starts with his anger towards the injustice that he experiences.
To confirm the information's correct.
What's the triangle mean?
I'll read it to you, it'll be faster. Ben Richards, 35, married. Employment history, hired by CGen, fired for insubordination.
Why is there a red triangle on my file?
Hired by Net Utility, fired for...
Hey man, I asked you a question.
Insubordination. Hired by Defense Net, birth of daughter. Fired for insubordination. Poor kid.
You mentioned my daughter again. They don't make glass thick enough to stop me from choking you out.
Then the system punishes him for his mercy of the hunter by the death of Elton. And then he sees how the death of this man who was just trying to help him had no effect on anyone. And it really shows that he has this realization that the elites view people as disposable. And that is what starts it. That's when he realizes that he can be the catalyst for change.
I am the initiator.
And then it finally hits the peak when the Gaming Commission lies to him about the hunters killing his family.
We start today's episode with a heavy heart. We here at The Running Man believe in following the rules. So it pains me to tell you that one of our most important rules has been broken by the very men we entrust to enforce them. Chief McCone and his hunters. And that rule is, we protect the runner's family from harm. No one would play if we didn't.
Which, of course, he doesn't realize at the time, but it is discovered that, yes, they lied to him about the death of his family, whereas in the book, his family is actually dead. And as someone who typically likes a dark story, but with a happy ending, I'm probably going to lean more towards the movie for which one I prefer. Why does it matter that the movie does this? Because we get to follow his psychological journey step by step. And each escalation does feel earned. And what we end up with is a character who is trying to be good by protecting his coworkers, by trying to save his daughter, by not killing the man who would kill him without a second thought. And the system punishes him for it over and over again. And what this does to us as the viewers is it makes us not just observers of injustice, we're feeling that injustice through a character that we've come to care about. And I think the film gives us an emotional entry point into King's critique. It makes us more receptive to confronting uncomfortable truth that story gives us. The book does show the importance of solidarity. Community is very present, and the poor do show up to support him when he has Amelia to get him safely to the airport. However, that resistance cracks very easily under the threat of violence. And it does do a kind of good but rather bleak depiction that shows how fear often overrides connection. The film builds a collective resistance. We start seeing it towards the middle of the film after the explosion, the graffiti of Richards lives. It's a slow but sustained progression of resistance. And it moves from individual desperation to collective acknowledgement to sustained resistance.
God damn, Richards. You are indeed a tough act to follow.
30 seconds!
Where do you think you're going? You don't hear that? I'd say that's some valuable audience feedback, Dan.
And the film does a great job showing that solidarity is viable, not just aspirational like the book does. And it does show how community is an act of resistance against a system that is meant to isolate us. And I think it's because we care about Richards that we want to see solidarity succeed in this film, because the stakes feel higher emotionally. So while the book tells us a story about the need for solidarity because otherwise the system will destroy us, the movie shows solidarity in practice and that it is possible and what it can actually look like in practice. In the end, I think the movie did a great job by adding sympathy and solidarity as a recipe for success. At the end of the day, what the book diagnosed with clinical brutality Film really makes us feel in our bones. And I think this adaptation proves that making a character more likable can make the message hit harder.
Seems like the whole point of Freevee was to make us hate each other so they can keep stealing from us while we fight in the mud. You want the truth. Turn it off. Don't watch Freevee. Watch who pays for it. Turn it off. Turn it.
Have you seen The Running Man or read the book? Let me know in the comments below. If you just want to let me know that you're here, leave a running guy emoji. Let's see what stories tomorrow brings.